this is where you separate yourself, because I can't, anytime I tweeted about Joe Mixon this offseason, it was, oh, he killed me for 2 years in a row. And I'm like,
oh, he murdered me a couple of years ago. Hello and welcome to Monkey Knife Fight Live, folks. I'm Connor Rowntree. Today we are joined by Fantasy Sports Joe Dolan. Joe, first off, how are you today?
I'm doing well, man. It was a week one. Plenty of takeaways we can get from week one. Plenty of overreactions too. Let's just put it out there. No, I don't want to be too aggressive here. I don't want to be too, but your team is not as bad as they looked. Your team's not as good as they looked, most likely after week one. So this is a really hard week for us though in the fantasy industry, because people want us for takes. We need takes. And the problem is, you look at somebody like Atlanta, who I live in South Carolina. So people are down here just like, oh my God, the Falcons. Were they that bad? The Eagles defense a little bit better than we expect. That it's trying to parse through all that, trying to distill it and filter it down. And that's hard to do.
Sure.
The overreactions are always going to be, there's going to be some fool's gold from week one. There's no two ways about that.
Well, yeah, the overreactions are always the best reactions. And then there's the takeaways that you think are good takeaways based on last season performances, but then there's new faces, first round picks, revamping teams all over the place. But we have to get into it. I mean, how did Sunday go from a fantasy sports perspective for yourself, Joe?
Really well.
There we
DFS,
go. Stay humble, baby. Stay humble.
DFS,
we like that.
Not so hot. I ate the Raheem Mostert chalk, and
oh man.
I mean, I think he was going to have a good game, but look at what Elijah Mitchell did. I ate the Raheem Mostert chalk, and it tanked me in DFS. However, across my double-digit season-long leagues, I am on the verge of going undefeated.
That sounds pretty good to me.
So yeah, that does not happen often, by the way. So here's the funny part, though. I'm in a neighborhood league.
Nice.
A couple of neighbors in the area, and I was like, guys, do you know what I do for a living? And they're like, I don't care, $20, The young woman across the street who I matched up with in our neighborhood league took Hunter Renfrow in the first round because she's a Clemson fan.
Oh man.
If she gets 5 points from Hunter Renfrow tonight, she beats me.
Wow.
So I have to,
and he gets those sneaky catches. Is it PPR?
I know. It is PPR.
So those sneaky screenplays that Gruden loves those plays.
Yeah.
Oh,
she took Renfrow in the first and Tom Brady in the second, and Tom Brady crapped on me. So
yeah, that was fun. Tom Brady went out and made a statement.
That one I'm gonna laugh at. I was like, see, I'm not better than any of y'all. I guess. Otherwise, I did really well. So
yeah, well, you definitely picked up the ball for me. My fantasy weekend wasn't that great, but the one thing that the Bears did give me last night was a great DFS performance on Monkey Knife Fight. For everyone out there, we got in to win our share of the $5,000 with the touchdown dance, hit a couple rapid fires, so everything was fun on that front. But what was your biggest takeaway from the first week there, Joe?
The Packers should have traded Aaron Rodgers this offseason. No, I don't think.
Just go out there and shoot him down. I love it.
That game, it reminded me. Do you remember last year? They just got destroyed by the Buccaneers. Now,
oh yeah, I love that. I
don't think the Saints are the Buccaneers, which is the problem. But it just seemed like they did not want to be there. I think James took him by surprise. Rodgers under pressure. If I'm playing fantasy and I'm kind of writing that game off for the Packers now. If they come, and we're going to be talking about this next week, obviously.
Oh yeah, for sure. This is going to be a recurring theme.
If they come out next week on Monday night against the Lions and look like that, okay, yeah, I think we can panic at home. But yeah, that was a bad game. Let's look at maybe some under the radar stuff. Everybody's going to be talking about the Packers and the Titans laying eggs, right? I mean, those two, relative to expectations, those had to be the two biggest crap performances of week 1. Like,
yeah, Derrick Henry was why my fantasy teams did not perform.
Yeah,
Straight up. That's like, plain and simple.
You know, we know he's game script dependent, but the problem is we expected the Titans to be good. And, you know, and unfortunately, you know, the thing that really surprised me, Eric Eager from Pro Football Focus had this stat. Ryan Tannehill, who's seriously, I mean, has been basically the best play action passer in the NFL since he arrived with the Titans. They threw 2 play action passes.
Especially when you have Derrick Henry.
What are you doing, man? Like, I mean, come on. Like play action is a cheat code, and like you're basically putting the difficulty on extreme in your video game if you're not using play action. Like, I mean, that's what you're doing. It was
not only that, especially when you have Derrick Henry, the guy rushed for over 2,000 yards last year. You have to bite on that play action. And the thing, I was watching that game fairly closely, just because I thought it was going to be a super entertaining game in the second half. And then they finally got some push in the second half. The O-line didn't, but it didn't matter because they were down by so many points and they had to pass the ball anyway.
I mean, that game was just awful. On a lesser end, like maybe an angle that's not going to be reported on, talked about as much because of people love to go to skew to the negative, and we're going to crap on Aaron Rodgers and the Packers and the Titans. I was really encouraged, Connor, by how Joe Burrow looked, that Bengal offense. I mean, if I'm a Bengal fan, I am floating today.
Yeah. Well, I love that line, the over under line. I went over on that all day. Yeah. Just look how bad Minnesota's pass defense was last year. Pardon me. You look at the receiving corps that the Bengals have put together, the comfortability you saw it with Jamar Chase yesterday. Like, he looked so good, whether it was the deep ball, whether it was catching the screens. He just looked like he picked up right from where he left off with Joe Burrow at LSU. I mean, yeah, I'm right there with you. And T. Higgs obviously was just making the veteran plays, the 2-yard touchdown catch. I think they're a dangerous team. And as you mentioned earlier, the Bears, my team, they didn't look so great, and I don't want to be playing them next week.
If you don't mind, guys, fun Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase stat, because that connection obviously circled around social media yesterday. So that was for over 50 yards. 9 of the 21 times that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase connected at LSU were for 50-plus yard touchdowns.
Wow.
So there's a lot of that to look forward to.
One more thing from that game too, especially, you know, if for those who are eyeing more or less contests in the future, how about Joe Mixon, 33 touches in that game.
Yeah.
100. Now, all offseason, everybody's like, you know, this is where you separate yourself, because I can't. Anytime I tweeted about Joe Mixon this offseason, it was he killed me for 2 years in a row, and I'm like,
he murdered me a couple of years ago.
This is a new year. There's no Gio Bernard. He ran. Yep. And by the way, what happened in that game? They needed him to late. You know, they were up. You know, then Minnesota came back, but Joe Mixon ran angry. And I like this stat, by the way. 29 carries. He had 127 yards on 29 carries. His longest run was 19. So what does that tell you? He's ripping off chunks.
Yeah,
and like
that's big time.
It's not like what Melvin Gordon did yesterday,
or David Montgomery last night on Sunday Night Football, where he made all of his runs up 70 yards on the first play.
Yeah. By the way, though, I think David Montgomery's really good. Like, just watching him.
Yeah, that was a really good defensive line. Yeah, that was with a very bad offensive line, like a very bad offensive line.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Joe Mixon, I like when I see that with just like, I know that's kind of pseudo anecdotal, but when I see a guy run for 127 yards and the longest run is 19, that means that guy had a good game.
Yeah, for sure. Especially against, you know, a Minnesota defense that's known for their run defense, especially against that pass defense that we alluded to that was bottom 5 in the league last season. Well, let's get into it now, folks. Just overall thoughts on tonight's game. We got the Raiders. You got Gruden's offense going up against Lamar Jackson's legs. It should be an explosive one, pending the Ravens defense, because I think they're going to look pretty good this season. What are your first takes just about this matchup, Joe? And what are you most excited for going in?
How are the Ravens going to play? I mean, look, when Lamar Jackson is your quarterback, the run game is always going to be foundational to what you do. That is not like, that is, you know, the takes about, he can't throw, blah, 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 blah. No, he's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not Peyton Manning. Okay. He's
well,
not.
Yeah, but there's a difference between those guys. But he only threw for over 100 or 250 yards once last season.
Yeah. But are they going to have to do more of that this year? And I know last year, Greg Roman came out and they were like, this was the year they wanted to, after the MVP year, they wanted to expand the passing game. They had the pandemic shortened off season. That offense, Lamar was not clicking early in the season. I would argue it didn't play particularly well. And then at the end of the season, they were just kind of like, all right, we've got to get that going. And they kind of brought it back to 2019. They benched Mark Ingram. They said, let's not rotate as many running backs. And things really started to pick up for that offense. However, their hand might be forced now with all those running back injuries. I know they like Tyson Williams. However, the guy
we were looking at it before the show. I mean, he was at BYU, he was at South Carolina. The numbers weren't jumping off the page, undrafted, but we love those kind of stories, right? Who doesn't love the underdog story? So you want to root for him, but again, the Raiders defense has improved. So it might be a one-dimensional game, and I like your line of thought there, Joe. Continue on.
I just think that Lamar's your quarterback, okay? He won an MVP 2 years ago. He's angling for a contract. At some point, are the Ravens going to say, Lamar, we need you to go win this game for us? We're breaking in new running backs. An undrafted guy who had a great preseason and knows the offense, but he was undrafted, doesn't have in-game experience. Latavius Murray just signed with the team a week ago. Le'Veon Bell and Devontae Freeman looked dust last year. So, Lamar, we need you to go out against a team that might struggle a little bit in the secondary. We need you to go out, hook up with Hollywood Brown, hook up with Sammy Watkins, hook up with Mark Andrews. We need you to win this game. Lamar's going to run, okay? We know he's going to run. It would be stupid if he didn't run. He's the most dynamic runner at the quarterback position, maybe outside of Michael Vick, we've ever seen. And I would argue Lamar's number one. So you look at that and he's going to run. Okay. That's going to be foundational, but I just wonder if they need him to make explosive plays, make more explosive plays through the air in this game. And I think that's what the Ravens are going to come out and do.
Well, the good news is for Lamar Jackson, he's taking on a Raiders defense that allowed the sixth most passing yards last season. So if you're going to take that step forward, as you say, and try to open up Lamar Jackson and force the issue passing the football, there really isn't a better meal ticket to try it in the first week of the season. Yep. Try something new against a team that's going to be excited. There's big, anytime there's an opening and it's week one, there's big play potential because guys are going to overjump. People are going to jump the line. They're going to jump the gun. It's going to be fun. It's going to be explosive. So there's going to be opportunities for big plays. I think there could be some big shots to Mark Andrews, a guy that he absolutely loves getting the ball to. Big target over the middle. I didn't see a whole lot from the Raiders being able to take that away. I don't think they have a linebacker that's going to be able to stick with Andrews. I don't think they have a cornerback, that's big enough to deal with his physicality.
Yeah.
But then we go back to the point again, he threw for over 250 yards as a starting quarterback, as a team that was battling for a playoff spot. So contested games once all season. Does that not factor into your decision with the more or less making going into this one, Joe?
Yeah, it's I think it's a new season though. I really do. Mm-hmm. And just with what happened, I think they wanted to see him take the step as the passer last year. The pandemic, he got COVID, got again this offseason. I think it's just all those things put together were kind of working against him. They had some injuries. Here's the underreported thing, because we're talking about the running back injuries, which are obviously the biggest factor for the Ravens. But remember, they drafted Rashad Bateman in the first round this offseason, and it specifically as an angle towards let's improve this passing game. They don't have him. He got hurt. So he has the core muscle. He's on IR. So, there is some work for Lamar Jackson to do. And look, I'm looking at the more or less though. I got to be honest. I don't want to blow up your spot, but I am leaning to more on the 220.5.
Yeah. You're liking the more Lamar Jackson. Well, I think it with the perspective being that he needs to come out and do something. The fact that they don't have the running backs. If they had the running game in check, I would lean towards the less. It's the fact that the Raiders defense really didn't show me a lot from a passing defense. Yeah. Watching them play last season, and then the stats back it up. Obviously, the 6th most yards given up against. Lamar Jackson's going to have to throw the ball. I think Mark Andrews is going to go off tonight. I think he's going to have a big night. So I actually like both of these quarterbacks to go in the more. We can break Derek Carr down in a second, but I think if the Raiders are going to have to play catch up, which I think they might have to with Lamar's explosive abilities, I think both these quarterbacks are going to go for more and more, and we could see a very exciting game on Monday Night Football to bring in the season.
I got to be honest, that was my lean. The more and more. Here's one reason. Number one on Mark Andrews. I like that. The Raiders play a lot of cover 3. One of the weaknesses in the cover 3 is the seams. So Lamar does throw the seam ball well. I like Mark Andrews there. Here's another thing. First and foremost, last year, the Raiders and the Titans tied 12-3-1 to the over. So what does that suggest? A lot of yards, a lot of points. The Ravens also play a ton of cover 0. I wouldn't be shocked. This is not necessarily a fantasy recommendation because this guy was awful for fantasy last year. I wouldn't be stunned if Henry Ruggs gets a deep ball. I also, though, Nelson Aguilar was there last year. Yes.
And Nelson Aguilar isn't there. So I don't think that Henry Ruggs, if you look at the base stats on paper, it's a long shot. But if you actually look into it from our perspective and analyze it, it's like Henry Ruggs is going to be that deep target. And Derek Carr, in Gruden's offense, an aggressive passing offense, that aerial attack's going to be going. There are going to be a couple deep shots. Yeah. And another guy to look out for, obviously, Darren Waller, if we want to blow that one up. So, Jason, just for everyone at home, both of us actually agree on the more and the more just because of the game script that we're going to have. So scroll down, select your buy and hit submit. And, folks, you're in to win. Now, Jason, if you could take us over, please, to the 3x3 more or less contest, because it's with those two quarterbacks. And actually, it includes a juiced up Darren Waller. And now, why do I say a juiced up Darren Waller? Because he is juiced up. Yeah, back-to-back seasons, 1,100 yards, coming off a career high, 9 touchdowns last season. The guy is looking good. The Ravens were also, from a fantasy standpoint, they gave up the 10th. They were in the bottom 10, for catches allowed to tight ends last season. So I think Darren Waller is going to eat today. I think his line on Monkey Night Fight was in the 77. It was 71.5. It's gone up. I still think he eclipses the 75.5 yards because I think he's going to catch anywhere from 7 to 8 balls. And, some of those are going to be deep shots. I really like Darren Waller. I'm going to leave that one out there.
Sometimes mores are sucker bets. Like people you're sitting on your couch. You don't want an under, like you don't want a less, you want points. We're fantasy players, but I gotta be honest. Like I said, man, these guys are going to hate me on this stream because I'm looking at all of these and I'm like, kind of like all the mores.
They're not going to hate you. 75%, I'm pretty sure, almost always take mores, and so welcome to the club.
There's the sucker bet the draw in, but this is a sucker. This is a sucker's game. I mean, you got the explosive coaching on one side. You got Lamar Jackson. Like people. Whether you're a Ravens fan or not, first of all, it doesn't matter. The NFL is always going to be watched by everybody. But my point is like Lamar Jackson will bring in specific viewers because of how talented he is and how much fun he is to watch. And then the Raiders, I mean, they're kicking off their new stadium. I want to see what that XS has a nightclub in the one end zone. Are you kidding me? Hey, Jason, what do we think next time they have a Monday Night Football there? We do it live from the club. Yeah, Joe and I, Joseph Stadium? And I. Yeah, at Raiders Stadium. I think that's what we got to do.
It's Joe, by the way. You could call me Joe. I don't know why I have my full name up there.
Well, get Joe and I in there. That's the key. That's the key.
But no, yeah. I mean, I would love to do that. I love Vegas. Like, I am such a basic bitch, man. I love Las Vegas. I love Las Vegas. I'm taking the Moors. Like how basic is Dolan here? No, but I mean, I just think this game. Look at the trends. I think it sets up for points to be scored in this game. The Raiders in openers are always kind of interesting as well. They are 4-1 ATS in their last 5 season openers. So The Raiders at the beginning of the year seem to be underrated. And we're coming out and we're like, Gruden, this is the year he's figured it out. And then they end up 7-9 at the end of the season. And by the way, I think the problems with the Raiders has been more personnel than coaching. I think when you watch Gruden and you break it down from a standpoint of just analyzing a game as it's happening, which is hard to do because it's the Raiders. You know, the Raiders are always they're like the Cowboys. They're always more than the game that is happening on the field. Mm-hmm. But when you look at it from the in-game perspective, I think you see Gruden do some cool stuff every week, guys. I mean, unfortunately, I think he's kind of like Sean McVay in that I bet he wishes he has a quarterback he could unleash a little bit more. Derek Carr just doesn't like to throw the ball down the field. Now, that's great. He'll take a shot now and again, but that's great for Darren Waller because he'll get those short to intermediate target. Darren Waller, 75 and a half. It might take 11 catches for him to go over that, but here's the cool thing. If you're playing fantasy, 11 catches is in the range of outcomes for Darren Waller because like he's their number one receiver. So like that's the thing with Gruden, but I think he does a good job in game. And I think he's going to be prepared in this game. Remember, by the way, Baltimore, because this got underreported because of what happened with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Marcus Peters tore his ACL within seconds of Gus Edwards.
I saw that.
In practice. So they're down. They have good corners. They have good corners already, but they're down one of their better corners in Marcus Peters. So I just think this game's right for the taking in terms of yards and points.
Yeah, and I think what do you think, just touching on that, because I think that's an interesting point that you just brought up there, because what do you think is going through the Ravens' their mind? They try to get a full practice in, and they try to get their pads on. They try to feel a little bit of contact with their number one guys going up against each other. Boom, another running back down. Boom, CB1 drops. Yeah. Where do you think their mindset is going into this week, Joe? Because I think that's really important, not so much from the fantasy perspective, but for the actual outcome of the game. I think that's going to be a very important factor.
This is where it's critical that they have a veteran coach in John Harbaugh, because like we were just talking about you know, some of the teams breaking in new coaches, and if they had a new coach, man, I wonder, a young coach, I wonder how this would affect him. But I mean, John Harbaugh has been through adversity. You know, John Harbaugh just a couple seasons ago benched his Super Bowl winning quarterback for the young hotshot rookie. You know, like
we were talking about it
on the block.
Yeah, we were talking about before we went on air. It was John Harbaugh, and then I believe it was 13 seasons, he has 8 10-win seasons. And, you know, he bounced back from that 5-11 season he had back in 2015. So the guy knows how to coach through adversity, that's for sure. So I do think that's an excellent point bringing up there. And one more player that we want to touch on here, just projections that matter, folks. That is an actual contest that Jason has up on the screen, so you can scroll down, hit submit, and you're in to win. We're suckers for the more. What can we say? Joe said it best. It's Basic Bitch Monday here on Monkey Knife Fight Live. But let's go check out Josh Jacobs, please. Running back here. The number one guy, I know they brought in Kenyon Drake. They brought him in from Arizona. But Josh Jacobs seems like the number one guy. Should be the number one guy. And will have that opportunity in the night where I think they'll be passing the ball a lot. And I think they will be mixing in Kenyon Drake. I think 52.5 yards is a bit much on the ask for that projection. So I will go against the trend that we're going with there. And I like the less than 52.5 yards on that.
So here's the thing with Josh Jacobs. We discussed Derrick Henry at the top of the show, that he's somebody who's game script dependent. Josh Jacobs is like mini Derrick Henry in wins in his career. 21.1 fantasy points per game. In losses, less than half that, 10.3. 17 of his 19 career touchdowns have come in Raider wins. The Raiders are underdogs in this game. That suggests bad news for Josh Jacobs. That being said, in losses, he still averages 64.8 rush yards per game, nearly 100 per game in wins, by the way. So this is a guy, if you like the Raiders, you like Josh Jacobs. If you don't like the Raiders, you don't like Josh Jacobs. But you just touched on it. They gave Kenyon Drake a multi-year contract this offseason. This isn't like you have Devontae Booker behind him, who's just a guy. This isn't like having Jalen Richard behind him, who's just a guy. You have an accomplished player in Kenyon Drake. I am staying away. I stayed away from Josh Jacobs for fantasy. I am staying away from anything that suggests Josh Jacobs is going over for more than this number. Oh, by the way, he's also coming into this game with a toe injury. He is questionable. The number suggests he should go up and over this more than this.
Well, the numbers from previous seasons, though, right?
Yeah,
and that was the one thing. Yeah, and I think that was the one thing that you really noted on the top of the show. It is a new year, and yeah, I think Kenyon Drake is going to be in the field on those third. Like he's for my dollar, a better pass catching back. He's going to be on the field for the third downs, I would assume. So I don't see Josh Jacobs having the opportunity to be fed the ball enough to get to the 52.5 yards, especially in a game where I think the passing game is going to be a key for both teams. And I think it's going to be more of a shootout than the slugfest we saw on Sunday Night Football last night. Not really a slugfest, a beatdown, but you know what I mean.
But also this is going with what we said earlier. We're picking both quarterbacks to go more. Mm-hmm. Josh Jacobs here. Now this is just a rushing yards prop. But here is one of the most mind-blowing stats you guys are going to hear. And if you've paid attention to my work, you know what this stat is. I always bring it up when we talk Josh Jacobs, but I'm going to bring it up again because it blows my mind. This was a guy, by the way, who was a good receiver in college. He was a good receiver at Alabama. Josh Jacobs has one target on third down in his entire NFL career. One. And so in games where the Raiders are throwing the ball a lot, Josh Jacobs doesn't get involved. No, I don't get their usage of him, but again, he's coming into this game questionable. The vibes are just not great for a good Josh Jacobs game.
No, I'm totally with you on that one. I think Kenyon Drake, as I said before, will be the more effective back due to the pass catching out of the backfield, due to the game script that you and I both have presented for this game, and that makes me feel pretty confident. I'm not going to lie with you. I'm right on par with one of the best in the business, so that makes me feel pretty good heading into Monday Night Football, folks, and that means great analysis for you at home. But before we go, Joe, we got to touch on it. Who do you think takes Monday Night Football? Week 1 season kickoff. Straight Monday Night Football. Straight up. Who do you like?
Like the Raiders.
You like the Raiders to open the new season?
At home, fired up, the new black hole. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I think the Raiders are winning this game straight up. Am I putting my mortgage on that? No.
No. But if I were to take the 4, I believe it was 4.5 points before we came on air. Is that still the line with the Raiders plus 4.5? Because I would like that, because I think this game's going to be a shootout to come down to a field goal, but I'm going to go against you. I think the Ravens.
That's fine.
I think Lamar Jackson's just going to have too much juice in the tank with his legs. And like he's had this season. There's some doubters again. We know what happened when we heard the doubters, just a running back goes out, wins MVP. There's some question marks around him. I think he's going to be fired up. I like the Raiders
everywhere, by the way. Fours?
Everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think
some Raider money came in. Yeah.
So as far as spread purposes, I do like the Raiders, but I like the Ravens. Let's say I'm going 38-35, take it by a field goal. Joe.
Okay. Well, that's good for our Moors. But no, I like the Raiders straight up. I do like the Raiders against spread. This line's moved a point, by the way. This opened at 5. It's down to 4. I think and maybe like the one thing you have to ask with the Raiders is how much of that is public money, local money, because it's in Vegas. So, but I just think the trends stand up to the Raiders, and I think Gruden, responds in spots like this. So I think that.
And one more thing to note too, like the fans are going to be fired up. Like Las Vegas. For those people
drunk already, man.
Not only that, like look what they did for that hockey team. That was a B from me. I know hockey, Canadian, whatever. It's like I love it. B+ hockey team on paper. Stanley Cup Finals. That I was there on New Year's Eve when they played the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
Like one of my buddies was playing in Vegas, so we went down. And it was wild. That building, it was like a rave mixed with a show. There was theatrics, and the crowd was into it for every second. And they know football. This is going to be a sport that they know and that they want. That crowd is going to be going electric.
I mean,
it's going to be such a great atmosphere. I'm excited.
To Vegas since the Raiders were there. I mean, obviously, last year wasn't the year to go to Vegas, but I was there a couple of years before the Raiders moved to Vegas, and they already owned that town.
Oh yeah, well I was there for the McGregor Habib fight when the stadium was being built, and that was absolutely what everyone was talking about.
The buzz was, man, the Raiders, like the Golden Knight. I definitely think Vegas has the capacity to support two teams voraciously, and I think they will. But the NFL is just a different beast. The
Raiders. The NFL is everything. It's America.
Isn't an expansion team, by the way. This is the Raiders. You know, the Chris Berman.
Oh yeah.
You know,
that give me goosebumps now.
That's what this is. Yeah, I think that crowd is gonna be freaking wild. Like, I mean, half of them are gonna have to be committed after this game. I mean, it's gonna be fun to watch. I'm looking forward to watching this one.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be honest with you. I want to see what that nightclub's like. That's on you, Jason, to get Joe and I down to the nightclub for Monkey Night Fight Live. One of these days here. Folks at home, thank you so much for joining us. That is Joe Dolan, folks. You can find him on Twitter, I believe, at F_G Dolan.
FG_Dolan. Fun guy.
Fun guy. Dolan.
I haven't changed it yet because I'm verified. A little humble brag there.
A little check mark. Why not? Could you plug some fantasy? Can you tell them a little bit about fantasy points as well, where we can find all that fun content?
Yeah. So go to fantasypoints.com. Subscribe. We have you know what? Maybe you had a crappy week 1. You might not have had a crappy week 1 if you subscribe to fantasypoints.com. But guess what? Here's the problem. Here's the good news for you. There's one extra week this year, folks. There's one extra week to rebuild your team. Fantasy playoffs are pushed back a week. You've got more time to improve your team. No better time than now. Go to fantasypoints.com. Hey, use the code 21Dolan10. Get 10% off as well. We have a DFS package. We have a betting package together. They're not separate. The DFS and betting packages are together. It's called our premium package. We have Monkey Knife Fight picks up on the site as well. So what are you waiting for? It's a great site. Oh, by the way, I literally am writing an article as we're doing this. So
perfect.
No days off. No.
Yeah, I love that. And one thing to note too, it's not just don't sign up for fantasy points if you're down just because you need to get back into it. Step on some people's throats if you're winning.
Like
get in there.
This
is fantasy football. This is like my religion. Like this is like my holy crusade. Like I'm going to kill. So I'm getting on fantasy sports, and I'm moving in, and I'm chopping heads. I'm guillotining some bitches this week.
I want to bet. I had a really good day betting yesterday because I woke up at 9 in the morning, 8:30 in the morning, and I cashed a 12-1 ticket on Daniel Ricciardo to win the Italian Grand Prix.
That's nice.
It's like Daniel Ricciardo.
I had him and Lando Norris to finish on the podium. Fun fact. So
that's a really good bet.
That was 23-1. Yeah. The double finish.
You won up to me there. But with Daniel Ricciardo took the lead right out of the gate and didn't rescind it. That's what you want to do with your fantasy team. So if you went 1-0 and you're like, let's make sure I hold this lead, go to fantasy points.
All right, folks. Well, you found it. fantasypoints.com with our guy, Joe Dolan, for our Monkey Knife Fight live shows on Monday. As always, folks, I'm Connor Rowntree, and remember to hit it hard.